All right. So yeah, I just put some something for today's review. I have been working on this thing for Runner, which is a little bit okay. Let me kind of like preface everything. So Runner is a very special team because it's not the classical team that's going to have a lot of UX UI challenges or implications, but it has a lot of implications in the that are not seen in the UI or are not seen in the final user experience, but like they impact everything that we do in CI/CD, right? And yeah, so I wanted to share these because it's still early. We haven't even finished the the problem validation for these. We're almost there, but we're kind of the process of finishing these. But I wanted to share some early thoughts because I think they're very interesting, and there are things that not that they have been surprising me because I kind of knew some of these things, but it's kind of interesting to get confirmation that uh, what we are doing is something that it's in the right direction and that we have been kind of like working towards the right thing, you know. So I'm just gonna share the slides because it's gonna be more clear that way. So let me share my screen.
So there is no clear questions, right, that you want necessarily specifically to get answered. It's just like to get the general feeling from people.
Yeah, that's a great question because I don't have a specific questions, but I would definitely love to get that feeling. But also, yeah, I understand. I think it's very easy to get blindsided when you're working in something like Runner because you don't know how are you impacting certain things that are used in other areas of CI. So, you know, if we change something in Runner today, it might change the way that the Kubernetes team works, you know, because they're not here in this meeting, but they have implications of the way that we currently install runners. If we, yeah, I don't think there's any kind of like implications for anyone right now in this team, but I don't know. That's what I don't know, you know. So I want to kind of get that general feeling of this looks good. This is it seems that this is the right direction, or you should look more into these type of things because we're still early. So there's still a lot of time and room to basically change course if we need to. So yeah, that's more or less the idea.
That's good.
All right, so let me present. All right, so yeah, so we have been working on this problem that it's called we call it the frictionless runners. We also call it making installing runners easier using creating the enabling the process of installing runners, making it easier, smoother. I mean, there's many ways that we have been calling these, but I think the bucket name is frictionless runners, and we are on the problem validation for that. So there's kind of one important thing, and this is something that I was reading the direction document, and it's actually a goal. So we have one of the 3 years goal of the verify group in the direction document is that we want to provide 100% automated setup, configuration, scaling, and management of GitLab runners for medium to large enterprises, right? So if you go to that direction page of the operation section, you'll see that that's an actual goal. So this maps back to the problem that we're trying to validate, which is the discovery that we're trying to do is you install, nowadays customers are installing runners, configuring runners, managing runners, and they do that every day because their CIs depend on these, right? So, and there's many ways that runners work, and there's people who like, they never have to think about these, and there's customers who have to think about these daily, and there's customers who do it once, and then they can't forget about it. So it's a very wide problem. It falls into many jobs to be done, because it's easily something that you can basically set up once and forget, and then it's not a problem once you do it. But there's people who actually have to provision runners in a weekly, perhaps in a daily basis. So that's where we want to kind of like find the validation, right? We want to see that presumed problem that we see, which is that installing runners, it's too hard for customers, and configuring and managing those runners is too hard. So there's a lot of manual process, and there's a lot of challenges when it comes to just putting a runner in a machine and then connecting that to your GitLab instance, and then like interfacing between those two things, right? So what we're trying to validate is what are the challenges that our customers are facing. And the problem itself that we think that we have is that installing runners and managing runners, it's a very hard process. So that's kind of the problem. I guess that I wanted to explain what is a runner first, because I don't want to assume that everyone knows what a runner is. It's easy to fall into that trap of, because we are all in the ops and we are all in verify, we kind of know what a runner is. And I don't think that's the case. We kind of have a sense of what the runner does and what is it, but I don't think everyone understands well what is it. And especially outside of this group, like if I likely am gonna present these for the UX showcase and the next one that we have. So I think it's important to explain what is a runner, right? So a runner is a continuous integration agent, right? So it's an agent, it's a program that it's used by GitLab to delegate all the CI/CD jobs that are running in GitLab, right? So basically their job is to execute those pipelines from end to end. So someone goes and creates this set of instructions. Those instructions are executed by the runner. They are not executed by GitLab. GitLab itself doesn't have anything to do with that. That's just a job by the GitLab runner. So runners are essentially a part of the GitLab stack, but it's a completely different program. You have to install it in a different way. Even in the context of the way that we develop runner, runner is something that it's developed in a different cadence and in a different repo. So it's a completely different animal, right? And one implication of that is that usually many customers have the runner in a different server than the GitLab server. So if they are self-hosted, they might have two different machines, one for their GitLab and one for their GitLab runner. And I think I mentioned this earlier, but runners can be installed in many different ways, many different ways. So of course, the basic thing that you can do with a runner is install it in your machine and test in your machine and build in your machine. But there's many ways that you can install a runner, right? So one thing that customers choose is to use a Kubernetes cluster, which seems to be the modern approach to build infrastructure. But probably the most popular one is customers just pick an instance in a cloud provider, and then using Docker machine, they install the runner in that machine, and then they register the runner with GitLab, and then they run the jobs on that machine dedicated for their jobs. And runners can be installed in Linux, in Windows, or in Mac OS. And then there's this concept of shared runners, which it's kind of a weird concept, but the essentially a shared runner can be a shared runner in any instance. So you can have shared runners in your own self-hosted instances of GitLab, and they will be shared for everyone who uses your instance, right? So anyone, they will pick jobs that are run in your instance. So they're shared freely by anyone. That's the difference between a shared and a specific runner. And a specific runner is a type of runner that is only running one type of job, right? That's the difference. The funny thing about that is that there's like kind of a vague concept there, because we also have shared runners in GitLab.com, and those are used by everyone in the community, right? So they are used by customers who pay CI minutes, and then they use them and they pick the jobs of anyone who's using GitLab.com. If that's their choice, right? They can also install a self-hosted runner. So I also have an issue somewhere where I'm trying to fix this problem of, it's kind of a weird confusion, and I mean, I think customers are not getting confused by that nowadays, but it's probably an area that needs a little bit of polishing, so it's more clear for the outside and for the customers. Here's a common configuration. So you have a GitLab somewhere, right? And then what most customers do is that they have an AWS EC2 instance somewhere, and then they go and install the runner there. Sometimes they set it up in an auto scale way, right? So like if the runner starts getting a lot of demand, then the instance auto scale basically to meet the demands of the runner. So, and as in anything about infrastructure, you can have it in different regions, so it's closer to where you're to the place where the jobs are being dispatched. So there's many things that you can do in this area, and customers are actually doing a lot of interesting things in this area. So what we have been doing with the problem validation research so far, we had we are planning to have 5 calls. We had 4 so far. So what are the things that we're trying to understand? So one thing is why customers are using self-hosted runners when they are on GitLab.com. You know, that's something that we're very interested, because GitLab.com has shared runners, right? And if we we cannot sell those as standard experience for anyone who has GitLab.com. So you don't need to worry about runners, because you can basically create an account on GitLab.com, write your GitLab CI YAML file, and then pipelines are going to run, because the sure GitLab runners are going to pick those jobs, right? But we have customers that, although they're on GitLab.com, they say like, no, I don't want those share runners. I'm going to install my own runner in my own machine. Don't worry about it. And then they register the runner, and then they don't use the share runners at all. So we want to understand why, right? Because there must be something about that. Because why will you take all that effort and work to go and manage your own infrastructure if we already are providing a way for you to run your job? So one interesting question to ask. The other question that we are trying to ask is, where do they currently host their runners? Because you can host your runners anywhere. Anything that it's Linux machine can basically run around, can basically host a runner, right? So it could be AWS, Google, DigitalOcean, it could be Linode, it could be on-prem, you know, it could be whatever, right? So we want to find out that, because we think that that's going to give us a little bit of direction of how to optimize for this. Another thing that we're asking is what is their current process to install and manage those runners? So if they have certain processes that they have created to manage the runners, we want to learn about that. If they already found a way to automate it, we want to find that, because as with everything in software, because the fact that we're not doing it doesn't mean that people are not finding ways to automate this already, right? So there might be people who are already automating certain aspects of the runner. So we want to learn about that. And we also, of course, want to learn what are their biggest pain points when dealing with runners, because there's potentially a lot of those, but we don't know what are the surface areas for those. So we want to understand that. And then finally, we want to kind of understand what improvements are they seeking for in the runner experience, you know? So we believe there's always room to improve, and they are likely demanding for certain things that we're not necessarily seeing in the community issues. So we wanna learn about those things. So here's some of the current findings and trends that we have been seeing. So the first one is that users who self-host runners, they do it primarily out of security concerns, right? So they might have a compliance issue. They work with the government. They cannot use something like the sure GitLab runners. They have to have control of the machine where the runner lives, right? So that's a very big reason that we hear almost in every call, right? In every interaction that we have about this, they mention that there have been a lot of there have been a couple of mentions about speed, but that's not something that we hear a lot. It's mostly security concern, being in control of the machine, being in control of the processes, and being able to basically destroy and create runners on demand. Another interesting thing is that I said here in the line, the seems to be the most popular option to host runners. The fact is that everyone we have been talking so far, they all have their runners in AWS. So AWS is basically the place where they install runners, and it's not a surprise just because AWS is the cloud computing leader. So like they probably have a lot of infrastructure there. But yeah, that seems to be a very popular option. The AWS thing, it's of course it depends on the service that they're using, because you could be using EC2, you could be using EKS, you could be using Fargate. That's one of the challenges with AWS, is that they have so many services to host and create machines that they could be using any of those. Another thing that we found is, and this is actually a very interesting finding. Many people were talking about cost and kind of like how they justify their GitLab cost. And someone mentioned something very interesting, is that when you work with CI minutes, it's very hard to explain that unpredictable cost center, right? Like it's very hard for people to say, oh yeah, we have this thing that's called CI minutes, and we don't know how many of those are we gonna use this month, you know? We could be using 5,000, so that's gonna be, I don't know, like $100 more per month, or there's gonna be a month in which we're not gonna be paying CI minutes. So people like that they have that flexibility of the CI minutes, but they cannot justify that to their cost centers and to their bosses. So many customers, what they basically want is just a predictable cost rubric. So the easiest way to go about that is just paying for a single machine, max it out in whatever sense it means for them to max it out, and then just pay that monthly recurrently, right? So that's a big part of the GitLab experience when it comes to paying GitLab. And it's also kind of interesting because many people said that with GitLab, it's kind of hard to explain to their bosses or to their decision makers, oh, we're paying for GitLab, but we're also paying for Runner. You know, it's kind of weird. You know, they almost feel that it should be just a single cost rubric. So that's an area of friction for customers as well. Another thing that we found so far is that developers in general don't consider the process of installing the runner painful, which is interesting because we work from the premise that it's a painful process. So what I take from that is that they don't find it painful because most of them, they do it once and then they forget about it. And then the runners work so well in the sense that they never break, mostly never break, that their general experience of the runner process then like dilutes over time because they forget that first time that they had to install it, you know? And that happens for many customers because not many customers are creating and destroying runners on demand. But there's of course a lot of issues in the configuration. Not everyone is, there's people who are doing Kubernetes clusters, there's people who are doing EC2 instances, there's people who are doing many things. So yeah, it's a challenging area because they don't consider this painful, but there's definitely a lot of pain hidden under that. And you can tell that because when you talk customers about the idea of automating the process of installing or updating the runners, they get super excited. They're like, oh yeah, that will be amazing. I would love that. So you kind of get a sense that they actually have some hidden pains that they are not revealing when we talk about this. So we have been also doing a couple of other explorations and discovery in other areas. So something that I did was analyzing the current flow that we have for the Kubernetes cluster provisioning inside GitLab. I did this because that's what we sell as the frictionless way to install runners. When you go to CI/CD configuration, it says you want your own runner, install a Kubernetes cluster. That's basically, there's a flow that it's optimized for doing this. And the interesting thing is that it's not frictionless at all. If anything, it's more, it has even more friction than just going to a machine, opening the terminal and installing this in the terminal by yourself. You know, it's so painful. You know, and I don't know why we promote that so heavily, but yeah, I wish I had more thoughts besides the fact that this is not ideal and we promote this very heavily. There's a link there. I'm gonna share the slides if you want to check the actual reasoning behind that. But anything that's red or, yeah, anything that it's red or yellow here means that there's a lot of friction, basically. So you can see that mostly just some parts are green. So not good. And then it's interesting when you're doing this type of discovery, usually you start finding things that are filling voids in our market offering, right? And there's actually one that we found, which is gitlabrunners.com. Someone created a website that it's a service that provisions the runners. Basically, their selling point is that you gain a lot of speed by doing this and not working with the shared runners provided by GitLab. Basically, their service is just a wrapper around some cloud. I don't know what cloud, and then it allows you to pick a machine, and then it automates the process of picking the machine and installing the runner. So it basically makes very easy the process of putting a runner in a computing instance. So that's interesting because that seems to be something that that we're missing. We don't have that offering at all, and it could be something that we could do in the future. That's pretty much the discovery that I have been doing around this. So I'm kind of ending abruptly because like that's where we are right now in the process. We're still doing problem validation for this, but I wanted to share it with you, with the team, because yeah, I feel there's so many hidden angles on so many hidden things here. So I want to kind of get some rate of the room and understand this seems accurate, this doesn't seem to be a problem. I don't know, kind of get some temperature and validate that the problem validation is the right one, you know.
I like how you visualize the experience in that user flow was giving like a color suggestion, color coding to the red and yellow. But I don't. Yeah, I think it was pretty invisible in the slides. I know I've seen that before.
I'll share it now. Zoom, resume.
Anyone has any comments, any questions around that? Juan, is there anything where you would like to trigger a discussion necessarily?
I know this is dry. You know, I know this is not as cool as saying like, oh, look at this shiny UI that I have here, you know, but I feel it's important. So I don't wanna throw anyone under the bus with a question here, because I know the dryness of this, but I'm curious about something, so if you go to this thing, which is the direction page, we have these 3-year goals of the verified group, right? We have be a tool of choice for groups that want to reduce their lead time for changes to under an hour. Part of how we will achieve this is by taking CI/CD analytics to the next level. Provide 100% automated setup, configuration, scaling, and management of GitLab runners for medium to large enterprises. And make ML/AI workflows easier, including features like adding the ability to install industry-leading applications like Kubeflow to your Kubernetes cluster. I wanted to talk about these because I don't think we ever have talked this as a team about these 3 things. And I think we should, right? Because what are we doing to achieve this as a team? So I brought this up because I think frictionless runners covers part of that, but I don't think it covers absolutely everything. I think mainly because this medium to large enterprises thing, it's very vague and it could mean many things, that span across many of our groups. But yeah, I want to kind of segue into a discussion about this. How we talk about this, how are we planning to support this from the UX perspective? And yeah, I don't know. I found this yesterday. So I was reading through the direction. I was like, oh, wait, we actually have these 3-year goals,
This is so interesting because when I read this list, I'm like, hey, this is very much aligned with what we are planning for release management. So for example, a lot of these items in CI/CD analytics, they are directly linked to what we envision for the CI/CD dashboard. And I'm having conversations with Nick from analytics, but I'm not talking to you guys about it, right? So it's great that you show this because it really puts in a lot of things in perspective, that there's so much opportunity, especially because, yeah, those are the North Stars, but we should start having this conversation sooner than later. Even to see, like, for example, what data points are even available right now, or in what stage of planning you guys verify and analytics are, so that we can leverage and build something together. Because I think, like, and I'm just only thinking about a dashboard, right? For this, because that's a proposal from our side.
Yeah.
To understand how we can all collaborate to this one thing, rather than being release management, analytics and vision, etc. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to discuss these kind of things in like a follow-up think big session where we state these at the beginning of the session, then we have the product managers state their plan to come up, and then we discuss like, hey, we do think these align with these these North Stars, but we do think that these kind of things are less in line with that, and make it, in that case, a think big session directed at product strategy rather than like stage specific topics.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting because when I read these 3 things for my groups, of course, this one is a very, like, 2 is a very runner thing, but when I read about the other ones, for instance, CI/CD analytics, testing has so many of those initiatives right now. We actually just shaped graph testing coverage analytics, and we're gonna keep working on that. There's many other kind of CI/CD analytics that we want to add to that. And the one that I feel these 2 make sense in my context, right? The third one is the one that I'm like, have we ever even thought about the third one ever? And I will say personally, in my tenure at GitLab, which is not, well, it's March 8 months. I don't know, whatever. I have never thought about this one, right? And I'm curious if you guys have ever thought about this one in particular, making machine learning and artificial intelligence workflows easier, right? That seems to be, there seems to be even an epic about this.
I think I actually discussed this because this was within CI. And I think it's important for these kind of direction pages to think of, hey, these things have probably changed a lot recently.
Right.
Like, I think, like, let's look 7 months back. Let's look at the Git history. I can assure you this was not in there. This is an adjustment by product management in the last month or so. And in that sense, like, I think that's one of the pain points with these direction pages. These are very product management like directed, and they are for marketing purposes almost to some extent, and they are for keeping us in line. But it's not really, like, I think we can do better there in order to be, like, who is, like, product management is typing these up for external exposure. They're not so much used yet internally to really say, like, all right, actually align with the things we state in our direction pages.
It's interesting because, like, I agree with you on that statement, but I know Darren from Runner, I found out about this because he actually pointed out this one, and he said, okay, we have this goal, and we're gonna use this North Star for the work that we're gonna be doing in Runner for the foreseeable future. So he actually did pin these particular goals to what we're gonna be doing in the future for the runner group. So it seems that everyone is, I don't know. I think the best thing that we could do out of this discovery, for lack of a better term, is that we should bring it to a think big discussion and socialize it with the product managers and ask them, what do you think about this? Is this 3-year strategy? It has sufficient fidelity to what we're doing right now at the tactical level. And if it doesn't, because it's not getting to that level in our design work, then we should find ways to inform back to us how this changes.
Yeah, I've seen Hayan already added this topic from the release management, like director level CI/CD dashboard. I've seen that for the cross-stage think big, which is coming up next week. And if you've seen in the document, in the agenda, we kind of, like, with Ian suggested to define a schedule, like, so we share the stage groups by the dates. Let me share it here, just in the document again. And yeah, I don't know, Juan, so test is also, that testing has a spot there. So I don't know if you would want to add anything to the similar topic, or you would find another topic from testing to add to think big, but it's definitely.
Yeah, I will. I will find a way to add things there.
This makes a lot of sense, and I think I'm have my one-on-one with Jackie tomorrow, and I already put as a topic, and so we can investigate a little bit further and come to think big more prepared about what we can learn from Verify's vision, and what are the the metrics or the steps that in a way match our own vision for our release management. And I think I can also bring some insights from the analytics team, or from the things that I learned from, oh my God, Nick. Because this is, to me, this is just makes a lot of sense, this topic. And we mentioned, I think, I'm not sure who mentioned it last week or last time we had a think big, that we don't necessarily need to have a dashboard. That's not the point. But I think we need to figure out what the strategy that we want to follow as a stage group. Is this stage group? Sorry guys, I never know. They keep changing the names. As the ops people, because I think that once we, for example, uncover the user flows or user stories, or even whatever is the data or the endpoints that we want to whatever show on the UI and what the low-hanging fruits are. I see that we can leverage a lot from our UX findings and the UI proposals. So I would love us to, in a way, push PMs to,
Yeah.
to bring this together, you know.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, I think the only reason why I brought this up is because I'm just trying to, for me, it's important that we are always aligned with these things from the UX perspective. We should, right? And we are, because we talk with our product managers constantly, so we know what are their thoughts and everything. But I think it should be a more nurturing process in which we go and we actually can say, you know, I think because the vision that we have for this is this, we should try to do this. You know, we should be able to be more a catalyzer in those discussions. I feel that I'm doing a little bit of that job with Runner, where I'm like trying to give Darren a lot of food for thought and create that foundation for the future work and vision that we're gonna have for Runner, you know? So I don't know, I thought it was important to bring this up. Not this particular thing, but just in general, everything for we're documenting the direction of the ops and verify and our groups themselves. I think it's important that we're always have that informed thread that goes back and forth between what's changing here and what we're doing individually in our tactical work, you know. So
it almost feels like there should be some concept of stage group specific OKRs that kind of tie into this. Has anybody got experience with implementing or discussing that with their PM?
I haven't, but I want to bring this into my next one-on-ones with them, if that helps at all.
Repeat that, Dimitri. Sorry, I didn't really get that.
Sorry, I was saying, like, especially if you scroll down to the verify, is Nani or Juan?
I am the one controlling. Yeah. Where do you want me to stop?
Yes,
here?
that's just yeah, exactly. If you look at the 3 points you highlighted, you know, like provide 100% automated setup, be the tool of choice of groups. Like they're kind of like a little bit like an OKR format. And I would say, like, all right, like this page is being edited, you know, constantly, and there's not too much to say. Like, all right, is this the 3-year goal? Is this going to change along the way? And the thing is, we need something like a baseline, and then we can see how well we've done over a certain amount of time. That is the thing where this direction page is not being good at.
Right.
And I would say that's exactly what OKRs are good at. So perhaps we should investigate how we can do that and say, all right, this is the current goal. Let's create our OKRs for this quarter based on this direction page, and then see how far we can get and actually how well we're doing towards that.
I have a comment, like we don't, I think we do use the direction page, like on a high level, at least in release management, to update our North Stars, because I know that, for example, Jackie, she's constantly updating the direction of the categories based on, for example, what we found from usability testing or what from competitor analysis, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not sure indeed how that translates to like the overall, how that relates in the CI/CD. So maybe it would be interesting, because I think I forgot also, I wanted to mention that in the beginning, Dimitri, when you were talking about that, yeah, this is more like for marketing and this is really PM led. And I'm kind of curious to understand how other PMs are feeding this, the direction pages, you know, is it like, what's the baseline? What's the deal with the changing it? Because I know for sure that release management, because I read it, every merge request that Jackie adds here, there is a change, and I know exactly what changes. But I wonder how that reflects, you know, in the bigger picture, so that we can align as well.
Yeah, I mean, like if it's managed, without structure a bit, it feels a bit like changing the game, the rules of the game mid-game. Like we set out to do this thing, and then we went playing, and then oh wait a second, no, this rule is now different, and now suddenly the game is different.
This is why I brought it up, because I think that I have never with my PMs never discussed these things, like open this page and talk about them. We implicitly talk about these things, I guess, but we never have discussions in which we say, okay, this is the direction. My interactions with my PM so far have been very tactical, and I don't know if that's a fault of my own, but I don't want that to be the case. You know, I want them to be more strategic, right? I want to be able to be part of helping them to get and accomplish these goals, and enabling them to accomplish these goals. And in order for me to accomplish that, or like to be enabled for me to, in order for me to be able to do that, I want to understand how other people are doing this. That's why I brought it up. But yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
I know.
I just add here to the chat this link, like this is what happens. At least this is how I get to know that, okay, deploy freezes is moving from 12.10 to 12, like 13.0 or whatever. Because it's difficult to get on board the train. The train is constantly moving, and those changes sometimes are minimal, and they will reflect, for example, how I should prioritize my work, or how we prioritize the, you know, the North Stars. So yeah, if you see what changed, for example, it's just the minimal change on, I think in this case was the analytics, no, the analyst landscape. Yeah, because it's something like, yeah, she was doing the survey to validate some hypothesis, and then after the problem validation, this page gets updated saying that, yes, we are definitely following this specific path with our strategy because we validated that the customer needed.
Well, it seems that you guys are ahead of, at least ahead of me on this, because my PMs are not doing this. Like, this will be super helpful for me, just getting the full review and just seeing what's the change. That already, it's an improvement over my workflow, because it allows me to see how they're thinking, right? The changes here were yeah, whatever they are, right? Now you read this and you're like, oh, okay, she's thinking about changing the granular approval workflow process. You know, that's something that it's already very valuable for you as a designer, because you know, when you're at the tactical level, now you know how to start, you have that on the back of your mind. You can keep thinking about that, you know?
Yeah,
my PMs are not doing that, so I'm blindsided about their direction changes, you know.
One of the things that I also felt like that, that's why I asked her to proactively like ping me on everything, and I was being assigned, but being assigned to something means that I need to take an action. So this is kind of like an agreement between Jackie and I. I ask her, whenever you change category direction pages, please ping me on the merge request.
Can you put this?
That's everything. That's our agreement. So maybe we can experiment with other PMs as well.
Yeah. Can you put this MR on the notes, because I want to share this with my PMs and kind of give them an example.
Do you think presenting this to Darren can help Juan, just like you know, giving him an idea of how this possibly can work, so he can involve you a little bit into the strategic part more?
Yeah, for sure. He probably is very open to that, and James is very open to that as well. So
that's great. So
can I suggest something? We have also the product meeting, right? And we can add to the agenda, to the product meeting, to also share this as a learning and share in a broader PM group. I think that would be also valid. I can add that to the agenda.
Which meeting are you talking about?
The one that actually right now happening, Hayana, or weekly product meeting, or which one do you mean?
Yeah. It's actually,
okay.
Well, then next time. Next week.
And let me know if we should change the times of this. I'm not sure if that's every week the same time. It's actually bi-weekly. Yes, it's exactly the same time. So maybe we'll have to find a new time for this design review so we could attend that, because that's a great meeting indeed. And
Yeah.
we had in the past like a conversation with Hayana. I think Hayana and Jackie are doing a lot of cool things as a PM UX couple, like a pair. And I think a lot of PMs can actually like well, learn a lot of good things from that. So I'm not sure what is the best way here to like share that practice, but probably weekly product is one of them. Maybe we should also discuss that more between ourselves, so then Hannah can show what they're doing so we can learn from that as well. Yeah, because it would be good if by showing the example of others, we could also like improve a little bit in other stages.
Yeah, I'll add as I think it's happening now, right? So after we finish the call, I'll add, and I'll ask Jackie to lead it, because I know that she participates, and it would be nice for her to bring this as well. Yeah, give more context. But I think we can just showcase. I don't think we need to. I don't know. What do we need to know?
I really like what you guys are doing, because yeah, you should definitely share the good stuff that you're doing together, because I think there's a lot of, at least for me, there's a lot of things to learn there. You know, I really want to embrace those practices.
Yeah, and let's also use our bi-weekly meetings to share those things between ourselves, or like feel free to ask. I guess it's important that we raise these questions between ourselves, and then so we have the topics to share, so that it inspires us to share the best practices, you know, at least in this team, and then we'll see where else we could bring that. I know that we are 5 minutes over the time. I don't want to keep anyone longer than that, but so Hayana, thanks for sharing. Juan, thanks for presenting in the first place. And yeah, I love these conversations. Yeah, let's make sure that we ask the questions around processes and stuff like that, so we have the opportunity to share in between each other the best practices, and then see how we can scale that a bit better. Thanks a lot,
Awesome.
and I see you all in the UX Weekly.